Welcome back. You're watching the Power Breakfast Show live on Citizen TV. We are talking about the presidential debate that was, those who showed up, those who didn't, and what the implications of that are. I've got my panel in studio, Joe, Derek, Wangoi, and Odoyo. Thanks so much once again for staying with me and coming this early in the morning. Let's talk a little bit about some of the key statements that were made yesterday. One was about the NASA cloud. NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga was asked, and that was one of his first questions. He was asked whether the cloud that or the backup system or the tallying center that his team is setting up will be in Kenya or in Tanzania, and this is how he responded.
Tanzania, is that true?
Are you through or you
I'm through.
I thought you were continuing the question.
No, you had the question on Odinga.
No, Joe, you know, certain things exist in people's imagination. They have accused Tanzania government of hosting a tallying center for us. Why do we even need to have a tallying center in Tanzania? We are going through an electoral process, and the law does not prohibit anybody from tallying the results. The Constitution is very clear, and even the rulings of the courts are now very clear, that the results as announced by the presiding officer at the polling station cannot be altered by a returning officer at the constituency level. Tallying. Then the tallying results at the constituency level announced by the returning officer are also final, and they cannot be altered by the commission sitting here in Nairobi. That is the law as it stands right now.
And Honorable Odinga will come to those details when we discuss.
But I'm going to the credibility of the tallying center.
Yeah, tallying center. Please address yourself to the question of tallying center.
We have made it very clear that we are going to be tallying so that we can be able to compare our results with those of the IBC. So why should somebody be worried about a tallying center, even if it is in Germany, even if it is in the United States, or if it is in the moon?
Even if it is in Germany, in the United States, or even on the moon. How did he answer that particular question? And you, actually, I'll come to you, Wangoi, because you spoke about places where he stuttered. In communication, what does stuttering mean?
He didn't answer that question. He avoided the question. He took the panelists round in circles. You know, didn't quite get to the point of whether they're having a tallying center. I think Linus had asked him in Tanzania, you know, and he took him around. And at the beginning, when he starts to answer the question, he sort of tries.
Are you done asking the question before I answer?
He even sort of disrupts it. Sorry, with you know, a sort of short laugh, and then sort of tries to take it around. So he did actually answer the question, in my view.
In your view?
He didn't answer the question.
I
thought he said an emphatic no to Tanzania. But then, I think people just don't understand these things. Cloud or no cloud is just an interface. The actual location of these servers can be anywhere in the world. All of us these days, we have accounts even with these phone farms, Android, and then this is held where? Some in the United States, some wherever it is. It doesn't have to be right here. But again, having a tallying center, the ordinary man thinks is just having your computer somewhere in a room and having it there. We can have the terminals here, but we are actually working with servers which are held in Tanzania, Ethiopia, Uganda, or wherever it is. But as Raila said, why should anybody worry about an ordinary tallying center of another organization?
So you were convinced by the way he answered that question. It came at you
That
strongly.
is the best way he could do it.
Joe?
No other way.
Were you convinced by that
I
response?
have to say that, you know, I have to give it to Joe Ageo and Joe Kaikai. Sorry. Linus Kaikai for, you know, for doing a really good job. And I think they had done their research. They really kept the debate going, asking the questions that we as Kenyans wanted to ask. I think that was really good. But I think on the other side, Raila, having realized that it was only he going to be on stage, realized that it was going to be a little easier because he wouldn't have somebody vehemently attacking his position on certain issues and his history and you know, and certain trends. So I therefore saw him relax with that first question, and therefore sort of run circles around the questions, providing entertainment and optics throughout the evening.
Okay. Derek, when someone runs circles around a question, what are the potential things they are trying to do or not do?
Well, it's a tactic that has been used, whether in a debate or whether in this was an interview. It was an extended interview, is what it was, or monologue. You could say that. I think he answered that question perfectly fine in my mind. Listen, the advantage that he had, which again I'll go back to, which I think he should have capitalized more on, was first of all he had his face to the camera the entire time. The entire time we could see his non-verbals. His eyes, his mouth. He didn't have to turn to the side while responding to another candidate on stage. That's an advantage that he already had. I think the fact that he sat down at some point during the conversation took away a little bit of his presence and took away a little bit of his energy. But as Joe said, you know, he had a little bit of humor. He played off the moderators. I think he could have turned it a little bit more in his favor, been a little bit more forceful, certainly gone after his opponent's record a little bit more. But Raila was a gentleman, you know, I'll give him that. He didn't stoop to attacking his opponent, but I still think that there is more that he could have done to decisively turn this in his favor.
Okay.
It was a solid performance, but he could have done so much more.
Okay. Going back to stuttering.
Let me hold on for just a bit. We also have a little is it a picture or a clip of President Uhuru Kenyatta's Facebook chat? And Joe, even as you talk about stuttering, you can also bring in whether you feel that chat had any impact. Go ahead.
Well, yes, I think the on stuttering, I think we've seen very what I'd say perhaps eloquent or great orators, you know, being big, using stuttering to their favor and to their advantage. And we saw people like Winston Churchill. And there's something about Winston Churchill that that's always stuck with me since you know, I started to do public speaking, which was when he was asked by a journalist once how he became such a good orator, he said by making a fool of himself 1,000,000 times. And indeed, when you did listen to his speeches and the pauses and the you know, and sometimes the hesitancy, he was able to draw his audience in even further. Now, Wangoi was quite, you know, I think underestimated the number of times he stuttered. I think he stuttered a lot more times.
Oh, he did?
Yes, and I think he called Linus Joe a lot, very more times, you know, throughout the entire.
That's the lack of preparation.
Throughout the entire thing. And in some points, I think it caused irritation. Another point, I think it caused entertainment.
Okay.
But one thing for sure, with that political monologue that we saw yesterday, it was music to the ears of the supporters of NASA. And it was like having a root canal to the supporters of Jubilee. And on both sides, it had a totally different effect. But looking at the Facebook, the Facebook Live, I think that was an interesting thing, and it's one of those things where politicians can start to use new technology and new media to reach new audiences. The effects of it, from what we saw on the day, the numbers that I've heard was 2,000 views on the day itself. I'm sure the views have gone up by now, but it's certainly nowhere close to what the President's debate company was able to achieve, you know, with extremely high numbers both on television and on radio. Okay. So I think we have a clip of the Facebook chat, Facebook Live that the President did 2 days ago. I don't know that we can just listen in just a little bit, and then we're going to listen into the other 3 presidential candidates who also had their chance yesterday from 5:30 p.m. at the Catholic University.
If we are to succeed in our war and ensure that the resources that our country is able to produce are put to the best use for our people, for our country, and for our future. From Michael Mbocha, who comes from Mombasa. With the ongoing construction of Lamu Port, the Chinese have brought their vessels and are manning them themselves, yet we have local shipping companies and trained seafarers who can work on these vessels. It is my request that you request employment for Kenyan seafarers, me myself included, because we are suffering due to lack of jobs. Yes, indeed.
as that was taking place, I'm going to ask you an interesting question about the timing.
Church with Uhuru.
It happened at 9.
Elected 9:30 on Sunday. I mean, people are preparing for church or in church already.
Okay. There are those who watch catch church online, and of course, there's a big part who do not go to church. They have different faith.
That's the bedside Baptist.
Yes.
With the reverend sheets.
So the timing for you was
terrible.
Okay.
Sunday morning for this, and you know, I think they announced it the day before. Was it 2 days?
Yes. Yes.
I don't know, Joe, you're telling us to not look at this on the face value, but I don't see the strategy in this. I have to say that.
There's
I
been
don't see
rumors.
the strategy in.
There's been rumors that he might hold a town hall debate, a live one. Him and the deputy would then engage, select audience, and they'll get live coverage from some stations. Would that be a good idea? Can that help now after what happened yesterday?
Well, I don't think this stage in the game it's necessarily going to change much. It'll certainly help. I think my colleagues are right. The Facebook page, or the Facebook live engagement, I don't think garnered even a fraction of the numbers that a national debate would have done. I can appreciate the effort in trying to do that, but I think that was maybe something that we could have done without. It hasn't changed anything. Certainly engaging Kenyans in a town hall type where he's asked tough questions, asked to think on his feet. Remember, part of this engagement is we want to see our leaders being able to think on their feet, offer divergent views on how, and it's something that is not stage managed. Trouble with rallies and even this Facebook page is that they're stage managed. Yeah. But a debate, anything can happen. You can stutter, you can be asked a tough question that you didn't expect. And that shows leadership quality, to be able to think on your feet and give a credible answer about these tough issues that are facing our nation.
Okay. You seem like you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I wanted to come in on this Facebook debate. I think it is something that earned more than it cost. Costed more than it earned. Because it is on a Sunday morning. Remember, majority of Kenyans want to use free airtime in their offices, free bundles in their offices. But he did not tap into that. Then he ends up getting 2,000 people who are die-hard Jubilee, definitely, who said, I must listen to my president, and then nothing was going to change them. So I'm sure he earned nobody else on this kind of thing.
Thank you. Well, we're shortly playing you a clip, just the start of the first tier of the presidential debate that kicked off at 5:30 p.m. And before I do that, let me quickly read some of the feedback that we are getting. Let me see here. 22422 is our SMS line. You can certainly keep sending your messages. What was your view on yesterday's presidential debate? David from Nairobi saying he was disappointed that the president did not show up, and he says he went MIA, missing in action, on Kenyans. Another one here says he was undecided, but after yesterday he knows who he'll vote for. Moses from Joro says Honorable Raila was answering questions which they asked him. So it seems a lot of people are talking about the questioning, and that was one of my questions to you. Do you feel that all the topics that were relevant to Kenyans were tackled? Some felt disappointed that healthcare was not talked about with Raila's part of the debate. Education was not talked about. Sorry, you wanted to come in on that?
Indeed, yes. I mean, the thing about it is that this is obviously being done for the audiences and for the Kenyan audiences across the board. Earlier on, I said that 23 million people, there's a potential for the entire media universe to be tuned in during that particular 90 minutes. And but I was talking to a human rights specialist last night, immediately after the debates, and one of the things that she brought up was the fact that you have rural Kenya, you've got urban Kenya. And for sure, urban Kenya, being much more media savvy, would be tuned in, making sure that keeping up with the debate. And perhaps rural Kenya less so. But I think in this case, what we are seeing is that because there's fewer options for entertainment and information in rural Kenya, a debate of this magnitude would certainly would truly get their attention. So the challenge, though, was that the debate was run in English. And if you're looking at rural Kenya, the preferred language is Kiswahili. So I think that as much as it had an impact perhaps on the maybe urban Kenya, that there was a diminished impact in rural Kenya, mainly because of language, of the language issue.
Good. Someone else here saying Raila answered the questions asked to him. He was not given time to discuss issues out of question. Give credit where it is due. Oh, and someone has said the same thing. In one aspect, though, this is Michael Mundia. In one aspect, last night, 4 participants failed to exploit an excellent opportunity to reach out to the vast majority of Kenyans. That is because they used fancy English instead of Kiswahili. So there are those who feel that you know, there are some things that could have been tweaked in regards to that as well. Keep sending us your messages 22422. Do we have that clip ready? Not yet. Okay, we'll be playing that for you shortly. How should Raila's team work on his strategy this week to ensure that gains that were made yesterday are carried forward? And how should Uhuru's team at all work on countering any potential losses yesterday, or should they act like nothing happened and move on? And I want to hear from all of you on this one.
Well, the first thing is that I think there were a lot of key points that were brought up in the debate, and perhaps, you know, having seen relatively short clips of Raila and his NASA campaigns, you get an opportunity to really listen to what the core message was. He had an opportunity to close his arguments, if you could call it that, or his monologue, by talking to you know, specific people, you know, to do with housing and single mothers. And I thought that it was a, you know, so this week they have an opportunity of pushing some of those key messages, focusing on those target audiences that they believe can bring in the numbers. And I think on the Uhuru camp, certainly, you know, we can't look at everything that happened yesterday. We can't take it at face value. There is certainly a bigger strategy being played in the background, and I think it's more about really mobilizing their core supporters to ensure that they have high voter turnout.
Should they talk about the debate in their campaigns or not?
Well, I think it's natural that the talk will be there. If you watch the pre-debate commentary that was happening with a few journalists and other talking heads, you found that they spent a tremendous amount of time talking about the president's absence. So that's going to happen, and the strategy, a strategy of lowering expectations requires that to happen.
Okay, Wangoi.
I think with Raila's team, keep him the gentleman. He, as much as we're talking about the finish, I think he finished powerfully as a peacemaker. Keep him that way for the next 13 weeks. To the president's camp, 13 days, sorry.
13 days actually.
To the president's camp, I would say do the town hall. Please do the town hall.
Oh, you think so? Okay.
Yes, because there is something about Uhuru Kenyatta that we all love. By the way, whether you love him or hate him, there is something about his humanity that keeps us glued to him. So if they take advantage of that, then they have a chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we do?
As it is now, it is very clear that President Uhuru Kenyatta avoided a face-off with both Raila and the journalists. So a town hall meeting of his unchosen journalists, if there would be any, of his unchosen audience, would not mitigate the damage that
wouldn't have the same effect if he turned up yesterday.
Mitigate the damage that is already done. But taking you back a little bit, what is lacking in Kenya is not how Raila will reduce the rents, it's not how Uhuru will do. It is how the goodwill to deal with corruption and tribalism. That is it. If we could get away of getting the two presidential candidates to convince us that they will deal with these two monsters, I would change my vote from whatever it is to the guy who has convinced me that tribalism will be dealt with and corruption will be dealt with. Because these days decisions in Kenya, even for a project, is informed by the corruption gains that will come out of it. So I think in any debate, if anybody would convince us he will deal with it, that's what I would go with them.
Okay. And Derek, for you?
Let me pick something that each of my fellow panelists have said that I think the communications teams, if I was working on either one of them, should do. First of all, I'll start with Jubilee. Absolutely engage the public in some public forum. Whether it's another Facebook Live thing at an appropriate time, or a town hall debate. I think he's got a short window of opportunity for him to engage the wider public. Number two, for NASA, for Raila, the questions that were picked by very smart journalists are issues that are salient to Kenyans. Build on some of those things, whether it's corruption, whether it is tribalism, whether it is the land issue. Build on those as talking points as he goes out now to sort of close the deal in the final weeks of the campaign. Hone some of those key sort of talking points and build up on those other points, because those are definitely the points that Kenyans are interested in. And yes, even issues to do with health and I think the economy. Yes.
Okay. Let's now have a listen to some of the opening statements by 3 presidential candidates who showed up for the presidential debate that kicked off at 5:30 p.m. It was an academic slugfest, is what some have termed it. The Battle of the Dons. Dr. Ekuru Aukot, Dr. Japheth Kavinga, and Professor Michael Wainaina. Let's just listen a little bit to what happened yesterday in regards to the build-up to their debate.
Wa kwanza au wa pili au wa tatu kuweza kutoa hotuba yake ya kwanza na vile vile hotuba yake ya mwisho. Kwa hivyo bila kupoteza muda, nafikiri wagombea urais ni waite mmoja kwa moja, kila mmoja achukue nambari yake ama kijikaratasi, halafu mkishachukua kwa pamoja ni waruhusu muweze kuzifungua zote kwa pamoja tuweze kuwaonyesha watazamaji wetu. Karibu, tukianza na wewe Dr. Japheth. Naam, mwalimu Wainaina, karibu. Na hatimaye Dr. Ekuru Aukot. Na munaweza anza kuzifungua.
Plans and manifesto for the country. We believe that we've got the best program on how to change this country. So I'm looking forward to actually debating everybody. As I'm told that the other 2 candidates are actually willing to debate all of us. So I'm hoping that you guys will be patient enough and to wait for them to join us in the debate.
Okay, and indeed we have a lot of Kenyans, millions of them watching you right now. What you want to them if you look at that camera?
What do I ask, sorry?
I'm asking what you want to the Kenyans who are waiting to hear you bring out the manifesto and all the issues that you have for them. What's that promise that you want to make to them?
I think I want to promise Kenyans that we have got the best plan for them, and I want to urge Kenyans to listen to issues. We want to go into issue-based politics. Let's run away from tribal mobilization, from emotive politics. Let's discuss ideas that can actually move this country forward, and that as we discuss these ideas, let's not disagree on ideas. Let's not disagree on everybody's plans, and let's remember to keep peace even as we go into the election, because Kenya will still be Kenya even after these elections.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And they are arriving here. They are on time this time round, and we have another presidential candidate who's standing next to Brenda Wanga. Brenda, if you may just engage him.
Indeed, another early arrival this evening here, Professor Michael Wainaina. How do you feel about this impending debate?
No, we are ready. We are ready. Impending sounds a little bit intimidating. I think we've done this for a long time. I think we are very clear in our mind what it is that we want to do for Kenyans. We are very clear in our minds why it is that we offered ourselves for this position. It's a serious position, and you don't offer yourself for this kind of position if you're not fairly serious about what it is that you want to do for Kenyans. I think the debate is a very good opportunity for Kenyans to evaluate the people who want to lead them. I have always urged Kenyans to cast a considered vote and not a committed vote, and today it is a good time for you to learn what it is that is on offer from all the candidates, so that on 8th of August you can cast a considered vote.
About 40 million Kenyan people will be watching you tonight. What should they expect to hear from you?
They should expect to hear what plan we have for women and for youth. Like I have said, my candidature is the first time that issues of youth and women are top of the agenda in a presidential election. For the last 54 years, these issues have been at the back burner. They have been piggybacking on other issues. For the first time, young people in this country and women in this country have something to look forward to in a presidential debate. They have something to look forward to in a presidential agenda. And I think our Youthify and Modernize campaign that seek to make youth the engine and drivers of transformation is going to have a voice today, and we are hoping that it's going to have an audience.
Indeed, and that audience is guaranteed here. All the eyes, balls of the country are watching what is happening here today. Professor, if you kindly just walk inside with your family. I see we have another early arrival as well.
And it's quite amazing how prompt they are today. It looks like it's going to be a very, very engaging debate. If you may just join me, so this is another presidential aspirant, none other than Dr. Japheth Kavinga, who's making his way here, and he looks all dressed up for the occasion. What should we expect from you, Dr.
First, I want to correct my name. My name is Dr. Japheth Kavinga Kaluyu. I want to make sure that you guys get the right ballot, unless you have a bad plan for me. But I'm looking forward to answer the questions, because this is a Kenyan day. It is not our day. They get to interview the next commander-in-chief. so that they can be able to make the right decision. So I'm looking forward to seeing different plans. In fact, I would like to hear them myself, but I'm pretty much sure, I feel strongly that I have the right plan for the Kenyan people, and it's a fresh start. That's what I'm looking for.
And what is it that makes you or sets you apart from the rest of the candidates that you'll be facing today?
First, I am the only really real independent candidate. I believe that because I never joined a party, I am uncompromised, I'm not a member of any interest group, and I made that decision about a year ago. And I have a real plan with real solutions for the Kenyan people and also for the youth specifically. So I come clean and I come uncompromised, and I'm ready to give Kenya a real fresh start.
Well, indeed, Professor.
Well, unfortunately, my time is almost up. But before we wind up, I want to give each of my panelists a chance to talk about the 3 presidential candidates who had their time in public from 5:30 p.m. at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. And they're calling it an academic slugfest, Battle of the Dawns, whatever way you'll term it. And I want to get, let's start with you, Owidi. Your take, as bearing in mind Muthiora Kariara became an overnight superstar last week.
Correct.
Do you think his presidential candidate came with equal razzmatazz? And of course, how would you compare also, Professor Wainaina and Ekuru Aukot?
These people came for talk show. They needed an opportunity to get publicity, to be heroes. That is why they were even saying, we have heard that the 2 candidates are now willing to debate us, because the guy who slays the Goliath becomes the hero.
Yes.
So they were getting the opportunity to be heroes on their own. After all, they are intellectuals, you see. But in Kenya, we don't go by that. We go by who comes from my village, who is our man, who is going to take care of our interest, who is going to employ my neighbor. That's what we go for in Kenya today. So I think for now, they were just escorters. That's what.
And did they do a good job in the escorting?
They did a very good job. In fact, they were very eloquent that if they had the tribal baggage behind them,
you think
they would go very far.
It's unfortunate that's a factor. Go ahead, Wangui.
I think for me, yesterday, Dr. Ekuru Aukot did it for me. He was clear on his issues, really debated really well. And when I think about it, I think he had the advantage of being familiar. So we have seen him before. He was familiar to the people that were watching him. And he articulated issues well, except for that part where he struggled with attrition when Yvonne was asking him about attrition and he couldn't quite get the meaning of the word. But he did well. He held his own. I think Dr. Kaluyu is an animated debater. At one point I was thinking, you know what, maybe he should have allowed Kariara to run. That probably would have been the favor that he did. No, he was very animated, and he was talking about Mathare and all the informal settlements as the inner cities. Not cities, cities.
And universities.
Yes, so, I mean, there was that. A lot of excitement. I felt like he sounded to me like a Baptist preacher. Like sort of raising his voice as he got comfortable. And I think with Professor Wainaina, Professor Wainaina has an excellent platform with the youth. He's really thought about it. You can tell that's where his passion is at. Probably because he's been a teacher. But in all honesty, I felt like he was speaking at us. It just felt like he was talking at us. Okay. And I think he used the word primitive at some point. So,
Dr. Ekuru for you was the big winner.
Yes, I think for me, he carried the evening.
Derek?
Listen, second-tier debates, as much as we don't focus on them, have the ability to propel a candidate to be even a front runner. If you look at the Republican national debates last year, Carly Fiorina performed so well that she was immediately catapulted into that pantheon of debates with the main presidential candidates. Listen, for me, I look at these gentlemen speaking as a way of articulating some of these very pressing issues in a way that's different from the usual talking points that we hear our main presidential candidates use. So it's another perspective or another way of looking at these particular issues. So I will always support second-tier debates. I will always support as many people as who want to run for president, because that gives me another way of looking at these issues and perhaps even speaking to a minority of Kenyans who perhaps need to look at it differently.
Okay. Big winner yesterday?
I would concur with Wangui. I think Dr. Ekuru did the best job of the three people who are on stage.
Okay.
Yes.
And for you,
in terms
Joe?
of style.
Well, I think the you know, looking at it from the communication perspective and television information or entertainment, having a curtain raiser always helps to whet the appetite for the you know, for the audiences, and to give people time to gather around the television screen, you know, be it at home or in the bar or at the neighbors.
Gave people time to congregate.
It gave people time to congregate.
That's not fair.
And of course, I wouldn't call it a debate. Rather, I'd call it a tag team, because they all seem to agree with each other. There was no real debate that was going on. So I actually think that it was a draw. It was just very even. They spoke mainly around issues. They did not really address the matters that affect you know, the constituents that they would like to lead. They never really spoke about the pain, you know, and the joys that their policies would be able to bring. And I think that when you look at the main presidential candidates, they're able to articulate that in a more believable way. So, indeed, the Democratic space is open. We do need to see a different set of presidential candidates and indeed leaders who are aspiring for the seat, and give them that opportunity to earn their experience and earn a seat at the table. Hopefully we'll see more of this happening as elections continue to happen in this country.
Thank you, Joe. I don't think I'll add any more to that. Joe, Wangoi, Owidi, Derek, thank you so much for making time to be here with us on the program today. That's how they view the presidential debate yesterday in regards to communication. Up next, we'll be talking about the politics around the presidential debate, what are the potential implications, who are the big winners and the big losers as well. And of course, we'll need your feedback, so keep talking to us. 22422 is our SMS line. You can also talk to us on our social media platforms, Twitter @Citizen TV Kenya, and I'll continue reading those as well. You're watching the Power Breakfast Show live on Citizen TV. We'll be right back.